purpose of Freethought Forum is to be vigilant to the encroachment of religion into government and to educate the general public as to what a freethinker is.
My thoughts give me power.
No scholar can map them.
No hunter can trap them. No person can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei. No person can deny.
Hello, my name is Hugh Henry, and welcome to Freethought Forum. This is our book report, and I have as my guests Catherine Fahringer, the former producer of Freethought Forum, and James Barrot. So we'll start our book report with Catherine. What have you got?
Goody. Well, I thought since we have lost Maury Maverick that the first book I would talk about is Maury's book, Texas Iconoclast. And I bought my copy in 1997, I think. I went to the book signing. And for those of you who want to know more about Maury, my dear friend Sally was kind enough to print this up for me. He was born January the 3rd, 1921 in San Antonio. And he received his BA, UT at Austin, Loyola Law School, Los Angeles, California, and St. Mary's School of Law, San Antonio. And he was a liberal Democrat member of the Texas House of Representatives from 1951 to 1957. He taught, and of course he wrote for the San Antonio Express News, and I've saved many of his columns because he said some marvelous things about religion. Which is not to say that he said flattering things about it. The book is a collection in the paper. I think it's at 1,000 essays, but you can see from the size of it that it's no 1,000 essays. I think I counted 52 or 48 or something like that. He has written it in sections, and one is about friends of his, Naomi Nye for one, and Ronnie Duggar, and John Henry Fault, Liz Carpenter. He knew all the biggies. Well, they were none of them big in those days, but they got there. He was, he wrote about the Red Scare and legislative memories and basic civil liberties, about war and peace, about the Alamo. And according to the book, Maverick became suspicious of all organized religions and claimed to be a pantheist and said he worshiped trees, sunsets, moon, earth, and sky.
Very good.
James, what have you got?
Okay, I have a book about a lady named Matilda Jocelyn Cage, and I think she was a very remarkable woman. She worked with Louis B. Anthony and Susan B. Anthony, I mean, and
that's all right. Go ahead.
Susan B. Anthony's partner, and she was involved at first quite a bit with women's suffrage, and she later found it to be a little too conservative. And it says here, we have seen. This is by the way a talk that Matilda made. We have seen our country gradually advancing in recognition of broader freedom, fewer restrictions upon personal liberty, and the people of all nations looking toward us as the great exemplar of political and religious freedom. But of late, a rapidly increasing tendency has been shown towards the destruction of our civil liberties. We are confronted by the fact that our form of government is undergoing a radical change with a well-organized body greedy for power. This is a vast help to those persons who wish to incorporate certain religious dogma in the federal Constitution. And that sounds a lot like today. And this was, it is 1890, and the speaker is Matilda Jocelyn Cage, longtime women's rights advocate who has left the increasingly conservative suffrage ranks in order to focus her attention on what she identifies as the true enemy of freedom, the church. Addressing the founding convention of her new organization, the Women's National Liberty Union, Gage warns that this growing presence of the religious right is the great danger of the hour.
Wow, was she with it? Whoa.
And
She
was.
left the other two because they were too conservative.
That's correct. And
Well-
she recognized that religion was the, and I think that's almost like she was talking today, because that's still the case, that our
Exactly.
that our religious right is forever trying to impose their beliefs on the rest of the people by means of law, and it's a great danger that I think we ought to be aware of and opposed to.
Well, nobody paid attention apparently, or we wouldn't be in the mess we're in.
Thank you very much, Jim. What I have is a new book, The Science of Love. A Psychologist's Cruel Experiments Let Us Hug Our Kids Again by Elizabeth Roth. It's called Love at Goon Park. Harry Harlow was a mean-spirited alcoholic whose scientific work at times seemed to mirror his own nastiness. One of the dozens of controversial psychological experiments he conducted at Wisconsin, beginning in the 1960s, he set out to induce a state of hopelessness in rhesus monkeys by placing them in the bottom of an inverted pyramid with slippery sides. For 2 days the monkeys tried to climb up, but by day 3 they remained hunched in the corner. Despair had triumphed. However, Harlow revolutionized modern psychology by providing scientific proof of an age-old maxim: love conquers all. In his intriguing biography, Deborah Blum reveals that Harlow's research was grounded on the premise that love is a phenomena that can actually be measured and analyzed. By studying what happens to young rhesus monkeys when they are deprived of affection, he discovered that a mother's love is the foundation of a healthy childhood development. This is now a given in modern psychology, but when Harlow began his investigations half a century ago, the topic wasn't even considered worth studying. One of the problems of the time was that the psychology of them was based on Skinner, and they said, don't coddle a kid. You know, if he wants affection, don't do that. It just makes him weak. These guys were working off of Pavlov stuff. And this man actually proved and measured the existence of love, but the experiments he performed today would be considered very cruel and against current protocols, but without his work, those protocols themselves would never have been established. These, you might remember these if you've seen them, of films of a monkey, a little baby monkey, running toward one of two possible mothers, one of whom is mechanical and has milk, and the other is made of cloth. And he always went to the cloth mother. He didn't go to the one with the milk when he was frightened.
Well,
Yes, they had a
I've had for the bourbon.
they had a program sometime back on TV about his experiments. It was very interesting.
This is kind of a rehabilitation of his life, because what he did was so valuable. Without him, God, we all would have been scarred by the prevailing child psychology of the day, which was, really nasty.
I think a lot of our psychology is being influenced by the church and their horrible restrictions and way of raising children in such a strict way, and all they think about is punishment and conformity.
Well, Harlow's experiments make a scientific case that that's wrong.
That's very good. I remember seeing a picture of that wire monkey thing
Yeah.
with the,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
in Life magazine back in
and he'd
707.
frighten the little monkey,
Yeah.
and the question is, which way does he run?
That's right.
And he runs to the cloth mother, who has nothing for him.
Nothing at all but warmth,
Yeah.
comfort, my teddy bear. Okay, well, let's see. What do I have next? I think I'll drag out something. Oh, no, my best of all, my best, in case I don't have time.
Ooh.
When you ride alone, you ride with Bin Laden.
Oh my gosh.
And that's Bill Maher. And I think everybody knows who Bill Maher was. He dared to open his mouth and say something that wasn't politically correct, and he lost his job as a talk show host. He's going to get a new one, I understand, and it'll be on, I think, Showtime or HBO or something, where he can say what he wants to, which will be nice in this free country. There was one chapter, of course, that appealed to me more than any other, and besides the solution of airports, which was excellent. Oh, I know what I did. I copied it because the book is kind of awkward. And it's about the man in the sky.
Favorite subject of yours, yes?
I have never known exactly where he was coming from until I read this, because once before he did some interview where he sort of intimated he believed in God, but, you know, that kind of fuzzy thinking. But he said, having always defined political correctness as the elevation of sensitivity over truth, and being an optimist, I guess that after 9/11, Americans would judge all matters PC to be an indulgence, herewith unaffordable. Boy, was I wrong. Which is bad, because political correctness is much more dangerous now than it was before 9/11. What were once the kind of lies we told to spare anyone's feelings from ever getting bruised are now revealed as blind spots in our rationale, inhibiting our ability to fully grasp our predicament. And then he said, people say, I like this, people say I'm a Christian the way certain politicians say I have integrity. Like we're all supposed to be impressed and back off and kneel down to that almighty testament to naivete and hypocrisy. When people brag that they have religious faith, I hear stupidity. Faith is saying I will ignore my God-given gifts for a discerning reality and instead throw my lot in with blind belief in something that was forced into my head before I could even think. And it goes on, and it gets better and better and better. And I just think it's marvelous that I think along the same lines here on this political correctness.
I never would have suspected that.
Oh, I know. You thought I was a conservative, didn't you? But anyway, that is an excellent, excellent book. My son gave it to me for Christmas, and I was ever so pleased because I really do like Bill Maher, and of course the stupid stations here would never let us have him until 1 o'clock in the morning or something, so I never got to see him.
So nobody can hear him.
The only time I sleep is between 12:30 and 1:30. Well, that's that. You ready?
I've got so many good books that it's just hard to decide which one to read, but
that's why I love to have you a guest on this section.
This is a book called The Ethics of Belief and Other Essays, W.K. Clifford, and it's a very great book. I would like to just take a minute to read you something that it had to say, and this is in the introduction. It is wrong, always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence. So wrote William King Don Clifford. He was born in 1845 and he lived to 1879, and yet many of his writings are so current. And then he goes in his famous essay, The Ethics of Belief, 1876 it was written. Clifford was 31 years old when he delivered this lecture to the exclusive debating group called the Metaphysical Society, which met in London 9 times a year to discuss issues pertaining to philosophical ideas and religious beliefs. The members included some of the most notable figures of the Victorian society, such as William Gladstone, who used to be Prime Minister in Queen Victoria's time, and she listened quite a bit to what he had to say. He was a very notable person. Thomas Henry Huxley, Archbishop Henry Manning, John Ruskin, and Lord Tennyson.
Now that's a bunch of opposites if there ever was one.
Well, but the clash of ideas is very interesting. I think brings out a lot of things. Clifford, who was at that time professor of applied mathematics at University College, London, found attending the society's meeting and participating in its often heated debates to be one of the chief pleasures of his life. The Ethics of Belief remains Clifford's best-known works, published in early 1877 in the Contemporary Review, one of the most popular journals in England. It drew an immediate response from critics who took umbrage with Clifford's forthright and rather pugnacious attack on beliefs, and which, while giving comfort, have no solid support in fact. William Jennings was to use ethics of belief as the focal point of his own celebrated essay, The Will to Believe. And I thought I would share that with you. I think he was a very interesting person.
William, what's his name, James, didn't he kind of go over the edge on seances and stuff like that too? And he believed that the two little girls that went out in the bottom of the garden and photographed.
No,
that was William James that you're talking about.
Yeah, who are you talking? Who did you say?
W.K. Clifford.
No, I'm not talking about the author. I'm talking about the people that went.
The guy that you mentioned.
Oh, that
one of them, wasn't he?
William Gladstone, Thomas Henry.
No. At the end, when you talked about the essay that was inspired.
No, I want to know who are all the people.
Critical of James's defense to believe in the existence of God. Yes, I think that it doesn't give his whole name, but I believe that's who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's the one that swallowed.
And he was very critical. He was very critical of W.K. Clifford.
Well, because he was a strange one, I thought.
Well, he was. He experimented with nitrous oxide.
Oh, well, no wonder he's so strange, I guess. Yeah, he did. He swallowed that story about the little girls that went down to the bottom of the garden and photographed the fairies, they said.
So did Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Oh,
yeah, he was another one, wasn't he?
That's right.
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was hopeless, absolutely hopeless. That's another story.
Well, tell it next time.
Well, as long as we're talking about things mistaken,
yeah.
A lot of people know about this one.
What?
The man who mistook his wife for a hat.
Oh, yeah.
Oliver Sacks.
That's a funny title.
Uh-huh.
It's a true story. This is a neurologist that writes lots of stuff for public consumption about what happens when the mind, when there's damage up there. Mm-hmm. He wrote about a man like the one who was in Memento, who had no memory, had inability to form memory except for the last 15 minutes.
Yes.
Oh.
I believe that was
that
was the title story of his book, The Man from Mars. But this one is about a couple, an older couple, and they somehow get along, but he keeps trying to pick her up and put him on his head because he thinks she's his hat, and she just waits till he finishes, and it doesn't work.
How heavy was she?
Well, he's trying to do this, and she's supposed to be the weight of a hat, and she's not. But
that would be your first clue.
But what this does is that this informs us about how the mind is compartmented into pieces and what those pieces do. Mm-hmm. For example, he talks about a man to whom he shows a glove, and the guy can describe it as a sack with leather tubes attached to it, but he can't tell you what it is, because that part of his brain has been damaged off.
Yes,
yet he can speak, he can remember,
but
there are things he can't do. And this gives you an idea of how perception works and how your mind works, and how it might not work, too.
That's the scary part.
That's the interesting part.
When people have strokes or other damage to the brain, many times one of the tests is to see whether that person recognizes things like maybe a pencil or common, ordinary things.
There's not in here, but there's a very interesting story that I saw in the news about a woman who could handle anything except she could not recognize any animal. And that would indicate possibly that somewhere in our mind when we are born, there is a file drawer marked animals, fill this.
And she never had the drawer.
No, she had the drawer.
She had the drawer, but never
it's jammed now. She has no access to it.
Oh, isn't that odd? Did he write, Oliver Sacks, did he write it for New Yorker? Did it say that any of his stories were in there?
I'm not sure. There's a reviews by the Times of London. I don't see the New Yorker mentioned.
Yeah.
And I think I'm in the process of getting my glasses, messing up my microphone.
Uh-oh. That won't do.
No, that won't do at all.
Well, that's all right. I was just curious because it rang a bell somewhere, and now I can't think of the story.
Yeah, the man who mistook his wife for a hat, the lost mariner, the disembodied lady, the man who fell out of bed, hands, phantoms, phantom finger, disappearing phantom limbs, positional phantoms, phantoms dead or alive, and it just goes on. That's part one. All kinds of reminiscence, I think, is about someone who can't remember.
That's me.
The dog, no, this is somebody who seriously can't remember.
I seriously can't.
The dog beneath the skin, and
That's both of us.
visions of Hildegard, which might be concerned with Hildegard of Bingen and how that actually worked. At any rate, the man who mistook his wife for a hat. What have you got?
What have I got? Okay, let's see. Well, how about News of the Weird?
Oh, I've got that. Is that a new edition?
Have? No, this is old, I think. I've had it a while. And I like the chapter on visions of Mary and Jesus. Do you have it?
Well, remember, visions of Mary are called BVM, Blessed Virgin Mary.
Okay, but
So that's
this
the
is
shorthand
Mary
for that
and
phenomenon.
Jesus. This is combining the two, the mother and the son. And I'm sure we're all familiar with the one in the tortilla, which I thought was especially interesting.
And edible.
The image appearing in a tortilla like all these.
Yeah.
Yes, I know, and edible.
Well, not anymore because they put it in a little frame of some sort, and now you have little curtains and little flowers around it, and people can
Well,
go
you wouldn't want to eat a
Yeah, it's probably 20 years old by now, but anyway. Okay, let's see. What's the best? Thousands of people flocked to Arlene Gardner's trailer in Estill Springs, Tennessee in 1987 to see the image of Christ on Arlene's General Electric freezer, which was on the front deck of the house. Each day after dusk, a neighbor's porch light apparently caused a bearded face to appear on the side of the freezer. Gardner claimed to have had a dream in which Christ told her that he connected that porch light to my freezer and turned my freezer into a TV by electricity. He made it a TV. That's how I knew he wanted this vision on television for the world to see. The family refused offers to charge viewers, which I thought was nice and rather unusual. Most people do make a buck out of it.
Wouldn't you think that a God of the universe could think of a better way to communicate with us?
You would, wouldn't you? I mean, if he's so powerful, I think a good way to communicate is solve this Iraq problem right now. Do you want to hear some more stories?
Well, the one I like, the one in my edition, is the one about the Urantia people, the ones who always hold this festival where you come as you were. They're all reincarnations of people who lived on other planets.
Oh, how fascinating!
And during their meeting, they have a box that they collect organs in from each person, and then use that to help peace in the world.
I see. Well, here's one that happened in San Antonio. In 1983, some residents of the south side of San Antonio got fed up with noisy crowds gathering nightly to view what they believed to be the image of Mary. One resident, Candelario Gutierrez, had floodlights installed and turned them on to dispel the image and disperse the spectators. Gutierrez charged that the image was merely the result of a porch light reflecting off the bumper of a '75 Chevrolet. Good for him. He had good sense.
Let me correct your title, Catherine. This is the
What?
actual title is More News.
More News of the Weird.
Yeah, I've
Yes,
got the
thank
original
you.
one.
You've got. I probably have too. My son gives me every time they come out with More News of the Weird. He gives me a copy. So.
How interesting.
Let's get back to something a little more normal.
But I'm not normal. You can't have me on the show if you.
I don't think the things that I have are really all that normal. Now, another one, I'm sure that most people are familiar with Edward Gibbon, who wrote The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. And this is a type of, kind of a synopsis of it. It's called On Christianity. And I think he's in it for it. Edward Gibbon was born in comfortable circumstances at Putney, Surrey on April 27th, 1737. As a child, Edward showed unusual precocity, but because of a sickly constitution, he was kept mostly at home where he devoured the contents of his grandfather's library. Gibbon matriculated at Magdalen College, Oxford in 1752, but was removed by his father and in the following year placed under the tutelage of M. Pavillard, a Calvinist minister in Lausanne, Switzerland. While at Lausanne, Gibbon mastered French and began a systematic study of the classics. It was also at this time that the future historian first formulated the religious philosophy to which he could adhere for the rest of his life. A moderate skepticism which, while accepting the existence of a deity, refused to claim any certainty about the precise workings of the divine will.
Jim, what's the title of the book?
It's on, I thought I mentioned, it's on Christianity.
On Christianity.
Yes.
Yeah. You're going to have to run kind of fast because we're running out of time here.
Okay.
We are?
Well, the publication of the first volume of The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire in 1776 made Gibbon immediately famous. The subsequent publications of volume 2 through 6 between 1781 and 1788 secured forever his literary reputation.
I know in part he was mainly attempting to counter St. Augustine and his City of God. And
he concluded that the decline of the Roman Empire was mainly that religion was mainly responsible for.
We now know that it was actually caused by a volcano in Indonesia. The book is Catastrophe by Keyes, and I've reviewed it previously. And the problem is that classicists only ever look at their own spot on the earth. And it turned out that everywhere else in the world, if you looked at history, things were changing and changing fast.
Well, I think, though, that he was, like you say, he was countering...
he was countering St. Augustine.
St. Augustine, but he also was showing the true condition of religion and the problems that it caused.
Well, one of what St. Augustine himself was countering was the accusation that Christianity caused the fall of the Roman Empire.
That's right.
All right, well...
I believe it.
Well, you would. We're kind of at an awkward spot. We have more than a minute and less than something else.
How about 16 crucified saviors? We got a time for that in a minute?
Yep,
16 of them, 16 crucified. The world's 16 crucified saviors, Christianity before Christ. Isn't that interesting? Now, here it's by Kersey Graves, and it was written a long time ago, like in the middle of the around before the Civil War, I think. So it's perfectly fascinating because this myth about Jesus and the Virgin has been done and done and done, and everybody copies it for that Krishna was one, and Mithra, excuse me. So
yes, and Queen Hatshepsut is one of my favorites, but I'm careful not to bring it up around Christians. I don't like to discourage their belief, except when they want to discourage mine.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't believe
we've just about run out of time here. My name is Hugh Henry. This has been our book report from Freethought Forum, and thank you very much for tuning in and watching us. Thank you. Watch us again.
This gives me pleasure.
My conscience decrees, this right I must treasure.
My thoughts will not cater
To duke or dictator, no person can deny.